Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very good day, Mulwene. Goeiemorgen, hoe gaan dit? I'm Khawar Solomon, and welcome to another edition of Life Matters. Today, in our series, in our parenting series, we chat once again to our esteemed guests, taking us through the happy, healthy families in a happy home episodes. We explore the delicate balance between discipline and compassion in raising our children in today's day and age. So please don't forget to interact with us. We'd love to hear from you. Connect via our various social media. I think it's Insta, Facebook, and of course our website, so you can tell your family, colleagues and friends to watch us right now across the lands and over the beautiful oceans on our World Wide Web, Hilaal.tv. And you can catch any of our shows, especially Life Matters, Hilaal TV Life Matters, via our YouTube channel. Today we are honored to have back Yasmina Samaai, a dedicated social worker and anima, joining us to share insights on this crucial aspect of parenting. Join in the conversation as we navigate the challenges and joys of finding that balance, that equilibrium in nurturing our children with both firmness and love. Let's welcome Yasmina back to the airwaves. Assalamu alaikum, all the way from the Western Cape. How are you doing?
Alaikum assalam. I'm good, alhamdulillah. How are you?
Shukr, alhamdulillah. What a busy year it's been, and we're looking fresh for the new year and hoping it is, of course, filled with lots of blessings and barakah on your side as well. So, Yasmina, today's topic, balancing discipline and with compassion. So understanding discipline is in Islam and in the context of Islamic teachings, how is discipline defined and what type of principles should parents keep in mind when establishing boundaries for their children?
So within our Sharia laws, so discipline would be more referred to as adab. So that would be, and we see it in all aspects of our Islamic law. To dive right in, I think we're all aware of the fact that we need to make salah 5 times a day. So that's a simple thing, just showing us how Islam daily pushes us into being disciplined throughout our day. So it starts early in the morning, then around lunchtime again, afternoon again, and then later sunset, and then again in the evening. So we have our entire day broken up into 5 different parts. So we are forced to, we are disciplined in a way to take that break to make our 5 days salahs. And then if you look at just, from a personal perspective, discipline in we see this failing our community, even our Muslim community right now. Discipline even in interacting with others. So to be in business for you, so how we interact, how we drop contracts. There's so much discipline with regards to that, so much guidelines, rulings when it comes to that. Mm-hmm. And then if you just look at also things like couples getting married. So we can't just go ahead and be intimate with another individual. There's rules regarding that. So it would be, are you cool for each other? Is there kafar compatibility? It would be then to get engaged, to be then to get married, to drop a contract. And if you look at our topic today, and we look at child rearing, we have tarbiyah. And something that's very neglected within our Muslim community is many individuals don't even know we have the science of tarbiyah. Mm. So we are specifically guiding on how to raise your children, because we all like to say, kids are an amana, and it's a blessing as well as but it's an amana, it's your responsibility. But how do you fulfill that responsibility? So we have tarbiyah, and then we have tazkiyah as well, spirituality. So we have all these different sciences, but all aim at discipline, in guiding us within our different aspects of our lives. So definitely, I would say Islam, it's a core aspect of us as Muslims. It should be, and it should filter through every aspect of our lives. And I gave this big example just to show you that this is how it would infiltrate in us when we are educating our children. Because only if you now start to impose things like, you need to make your salah, you need to fulfill the duties of a Muslim that a Muslim should do, this already then instills discipline. So you're looking maybe at Oprah or Dr. Phil, whatever, for advice, but just fulfilling and looking at what it is that Islam makes compulsory upon us, and at what ages you teach certain things to your children already would instill that discipline in our kids. So.
Yasmina, what comes in for me is, the subject and the sciences of tazkiyah and tarbiyah. That's not, a subject that we will learn at a madrasa after school, or, something that's been offered to us as children. So how valuable is, going to seek knowledge on those sciences for parents who are getting married, just like there's marriage classes nowadays, for young couples at the local masjids and masajids. How important is it for us that our community, and I'm sure our imams and our leaders, our sheikhs, has these classes, but it is up to us as parents to go and find out more about the subject so that we can apply it in our daily lives when raising our children.
Yes, that's very, very important. And just looking at Tazkiyah alone, this is exceptionally important because remember, and I can't remember the exact scholar where I read this from, but he was saying that you can't do one of the sciences without the other. So a lot of us would say, okay, for those of us studying deen, we would say, I want to focus my attention on aqidah, belief, or we would say, I want to focus my attention on fiqh, usul fiqh, the laws of Islam or our Sharia. But you can never learn that alone, isolated. You have to learn tazkiyah, spirituality with that. And it sometimes, and this is also something I struggled with when in starting my journey in Islamic studies, because it doesn't seem, it's a tangible. It's not something that you can test. It's very difficult to explain the science of tazkiyah. Whereas if you have fiqh, so you can say, okay, I'm going to incorporate that in my salah, I'm going to incorporate that with my wudu, I'm going to incorporate that with business or whatever it is. So it's tangible. But tazkiyah is something that you're constantly working on. But that is something that always goes with every other science, your tazkiyah, spirituality, because it teaches you that no matter how far or how much you learn in the various sciences, tazkiyah keeps you grounded. It keeps you, it allows you to see the greater purpose of things. So I would say fiqh for me is very clinical. So it's very black or white. Okay. This is how you look at things. It is compulsory, sunnah, haram, whatever it is. But then you have tazkiyah, and that brings a different aspect to things. It's more about your inner self, disciplining yourself. So I think that's a beautiful science to go into. I've made a complete 360, and I would say that is a very important science. Because if you have that, your tarbiyah, your child rearing, will be so much easier. You'd have that compassion, that mercy, because you'd understand the inner workings of yourself. You'd understand how to be merciful. You'd understand individuals make mistakes, things like that, and how to rectify it and go about things like just tawbah, for example. So
let's look at, sorry, Yasmina, if I can latch onto tazkiyah, let's look at the role of compassion and how does compassion align with, our Islamic values, and what are ways parents can actually incorporate this mercy, this understanding, as you're explaining, within a disciplinary approach?
So, like I said, so the first would be, yes, to study the different sciences, because compassion can be different to different individuals. So, but we would obviously like our compassion and like mercy to come from a sense of, education. Yeah. So we wouldn't want to say, I'm being compassionate towards you for A, B, and C, but then Islam teaches us, okay, but this is how you show compassion. This is how you show mercy. So, for example, some individuals would say, okay, my child is mukallaf, or maybe they're not mukallaf, but it's time for them to learn how to make salah. But you say, you're showing compassion and mercy by not waking them up for fajr, by not doing certain things. But then Islam comes, and Islam says, no, by this age, by the time you become mukallaf, these things are compulsory upon them. And it takes the parent to enforce those things upon them. So now are you going on your judgment to think, but my child slept late, maybe they need a few more hours of sleep, they can just make qada, fajr or so? Or is your compassion in that I want good for my child, akhirah, and dunya? So showing compassion would be to wake them up, to show them how important salah is, to keep them grounded. So your compassion should be measured by what else Allah expects of us. And the example of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, rather than what we deem to be correct or incorrect. So that's definitely I would say the compass that we should.
Well, I've never thought of, compassion in that way, in a context of salah, which is, like you said, falls under, fiqh, our rulings, the clinical understanding of what we must and must not do in Islam. But the aspects around salah, like, instilling it, showing your children how to do it with khushu, and to understand it that we are looking beyond just akhirah. So when you're waking your child up, you're actually thinking of the dunya and the akhirah. So it's a beautiful example, Yasmina. But now, for me, and looking at different aspects within our backgrounds is cultural influences, and it's a show that we've done, previously. Your parenting style does influence, where you come from. So cultural norms often shape our parent styles, and I want to touch on that after the short break. So Yasmina, please stay with us. She joins us from the Western Cape out in Cape Town as we discuss and raising healthy, happy children in our Happy Home series with our Alima and social worker Yasmina Samaai. And we will be with you just after this. Don't go anywhere. Remember, we want to interact with you, but join us just after the short break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are balancing our discipline with how we interact with our children and how loving we are with them when we are disciplining. And often that is not a great balance to have. It doesn't come naturally. And we have to learn it from a very young age when we are parenting our children, when we are raising them. And what we see is what we often do. So our parents raised us in the most beautiful way, and we are so grateful and appreciate, because that's, who we are today. But alhamdulillah, what we've been exposed to of how we raise our children to today, it's a different era, it's a different norm. Instant gratification, social media, screens everywhere is not what we grew up with. So we have to compromise and now learn what is available to us right now to better understanding how to raise our children. So online I have and to share this platform to guide us on raising happy, healthy children in our series, balancing our parenting styles with discipline and compassion, is Yasmina, who's online with us, our social worker. So Yasmina, just before the break, I introduced the aspect of cultural influences, and our cultural norms often shape our parenting styles. How do cultural influences impact the perception of discipline and the compassion within, of course, Islamic families? And how can parents navigate these influences? And keeping in mind the beautiful show we did before this, where we had our appreciation for our cultural influences within our lives.
Yes. So what I wanted to say touches quite a bit on what we spoke about in our last session as well. In that, yes, the cultural influences can be positive as well, not only negative. And I think number one would be, when you are faced with a challenge, you would first have to differentiate, okay, is this something positive or something negative? But that's where our first challenge is. It would be, are you capable of saying, okay, this is what is correct and this is what is incorrect? And it seems like, and you'll be like, oh, but yes, obviously I'll be able to say this is right or this is wrong. But like I always refer back to, what is your guiding principle? Is your guiding principle what you deem to be right and wrong, what you've seen on a show, parenting show, maybe even this show? Or is it something that you've seen on, is it something that you've learned, okay, this is from my Quran, this is from my Sunnah, this is from various scholars, that, and I always say, if you read different books, etc., know about the scholar that wrote these books, know about the authors, know your references, because it is what you take on from them. It also has a major influence on. Okay, so what you deem to see, what you see as being right or wrong, could be influenced by the various books or methodologies that you surround yourself by. And just simple differences like where you're located as well. So I know here in Cape Town we have certain cultural norms or so, and perhaps by you, how things are a little bit different over there. So when you surround yourself, when you're surrounded by a certain group of people, you'd be able to pick up, okay, this is what's deemed to be correct. But then you move to a different area, so a different environment, maybe a different group of scholars, different bunch of books, etc., and you tell yourself, okay, but this is what's deemed to be right and wrong over here. So I would definitely say it would be to be able to say, okay, I have the knowledge of the science. So if it comes to tarbiyah, child rearing, I would say, okay, I'm able to differentiate that, but this individual is bringing to me is correct according to what I've learned under the science of tarbiyah, under the science of aqidah. And like today, we are tested quite a bit when it comes to our aqidah, our belief as well. But I think that's a whole topic on its own. but it really, it's up to you to know, okay. And it's difficult because now when I'm speaking, an individual might think, oh, I was faced with this issue at work. Or another individual will be like, okay, I was faced with this issue with my child. And those are very different sciences. So maybe in your science, it's a science that would be bio, it would be medicine, it would be whatever field you are in. But then with your child, it would be things like therapy. So I would say that whatever it is that you faced quite a bit with, if you have children, it would be a duty to study the science of therapy. If you're in the business world, it would be a duty to study bio. And then only with that knowledge would you be able to then differentiate what is right and wrong with different influences. Because even in our working environment, we have different norms that we are exposed to depending on a different context. So it would definitely depend on what is the situation that you are faced with. So with family, and we mentioned this before, what we find ourselves doing now as so I would say that I'm a new parent. So many individuals in my shoes would say, okay, this is what my parents did and they raised me.
Yes.
So I would say, okay, I turned out well. Maybe because my parents had this kind of approach with me. So you would copy and paste that approach with your child.
Yeah.
So that's I don't think that would be, and we touched on this quite a bit the last session as well. That is not the best approach to take. But it would be definitely to know the science of tarbiyah and then apply that. So I'm not sure if I answered the question correctly.
Yeah. And I know that, back in the day, giving us a slap and throwing us with a slipper from time to time with whatever our parents had there because we just didn't listen, or you just get a look and you know exactly what is, good for you. But today you try and give your child a look. She's like, what's wrong, mommy? Why are you pulling your face like that? So our children are so much more expressive. So let's look at our expectation when it comes to our children, setting, clear boundaries and creating these expectations, because parents, need to communicate effectively. So how can parents effectively communicate and set clear boundaries for their children? And I know it starts from a young age, because trying to bend like they say, the bow when they're older, it's a bit hard. So let's try and understand, balancing the need for this discipline with a compassionate approach when you are setting clear boundaries and expectations.
Yes, so this is very important, the expectations of your child, because a lot of us we would just assume that our child has the same background knowledge as us. And then if we say, don't do this, do this, we just expect them to know what to do or what not to do. So this is very, and you see this all the time. You see it with, especially with the kids that I see. And maybe the parents will say, no, my child has this, they have discipline issues, they don't listen, they act out, or whatever it is they have complaints of. But then a child wouldn't actually even deem that behavior as being wrong. So even if you ask them, okay, the situation, and discuss it with them, then if you listen to their understanding of that situation, it's sometimes so different to what us as adults would perceive that situation to be. So simple things, and maybe this is a very minor example, but there's this issue around saying you. So when you're speaking to an adult, you don't refer to the adult as you. You would say auntie so and so, uncle so and so, or miss so and so. So that is what is respectful for us when we speak to an individual.
Yes.
But to expect that from a young child, so now if you have a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, and from the get-go, they refer to your mom or your dad as you. And when you were younger and you did that, there was dire consequences.
Yes.
But now your child is saying that to your parents. And everyone goes, oh, and they start to gasp. And this child does not understand what it is that they did wrong. They just ask, what are you doing now?
Yeah, how are
what
you?
did you or how are you?
Yeah.
So in that situation, it's a learning curve now. So you're going to be, depending on the age especially, you're going to have to repeat to that child quite a bit. Don't say you, say ma. Don't say you, say pa. So you would have to repeat that quite a bit. It's going to take some time for that child to be able to pick up, okay, when I speak to this person, I say ma, I say pa. When I speak to this person, I say aunt. uncle, because what you're expecting of them is to differentiate between the relation to that person. You're asking them to then also differentiate between the age. So now do they say it to an older cousin? Do they say it to an aunt? So you know that is your aunt, that is your uncle, that is your cousin, this is a peer or a colleague, or this is a boss of yours. But your child doesn't know that. You can't expect your child to have that understanding. It takes you to explain this is an older individual, so you would say aunt to uncle. This is a younger person, a peer, so you can say you when you're speaking to this individual. So you have to do that constantly. And obviously you would be able to tell, okay, now my child is doing it on purpose to disrespect. Sometimes you can tell they're just being spiteful. Right? And then in that time, say, don't do that. It's wrong, it's disrespectful because of A, B, and C. Because like we said, this is also cultural norms. We don't see this in other cultures where they refer to aunt and uncle, etc. And they might be picking it up at school as well. If you don't say aunt and uncle, you say you to an elder person. So it would take you to repeatedly say that to a child, and they would eventually pick up that.
I'm so glad you brought up that example, because my 26-year-old daughter actually told me of a story that I did to her when she was younger, and we were in a company and she said you to me when I think she was in primary school or something, and then I said to her, who are you calling you? You dog, you mommy, you cat. She said to me, Mommy, from that day, I never ever said you to Mommy or anybody because I was so embarrassed, because Mommy said it to me in front of all my friends, and I don't even remember that time. Another instance she mentioned to me, she was, at least that I experienced, I said to her, send my mother, who is her grandmother, a message from my phone. And she was typing the message to my mother, and my mother said in the message, who am I speaking to? So immediately my mother knew that that wasn't me typing, because my daughter must have said you or something. So she said, Khawa, I could immediately pick up that that was, Afaf speaking, one of your children, because you would not talk to me like that. Because I would say, yes, I would say, Mommy, did Mommy buy something for Mommy, I would say Mommy like 5 times in that message, I'd never use the word you. So I think that, and when I traveled even into Saudi, and the young children were calling their mother you and their father you. And I was like so taken aback, and I thought, wow, this must be a cultural thing for us, to be doing it here in South Africa or in Cape Town, because I think there are countries around the world where that's not shown as a way of respect. So such a apt example and a funny antidote as well.
But actually, how in our Quran also we have Nabi Yusuf actually he says Ya Abati when he speaks to his father. So I would say yes, it's cultural, but we find it in our Quran as well. He says, "Oh, my father," when he speaks to his father, and then we do that as well. We also refer in a kind way to our parents. So actually, no, it's found within Islam. It's something positive. So you see, this is a cultural influence, but it has roots within our Islamic practices, definitely.
Okay, so consistency is another issue that us as parents, find it hard to follow up on, because just as like that example, you're teaching your child not to say you. So every time you have to reiterate that every time, and it gets, tiresome. I mean, that's just one example. So consistency is what I want to touch on just after the short break. Disciplining, the balance between, at least balancing the discipline between, discipline and compassion, adab, and loving your child in a beautiful manner while you're disciplining them. I know it's so hard. You just have to be calm and husa, but it can happen. We can do it. We can come back and agree what mistakes we have and parent in a holistic way. But more just after this. Stay with us. Balancing our parenting styles when it comes to discipline with compassion is what we are talking about in today's Life Matters, a parenting edition. I'm Khawa Solomon, and we've got about 2 segments left, so stay with us. But remember, you can communicate with any general queries as well as comments or questions on the topic, as well as, something that you might be interested in talking about, or you'd like to bring us further information, or say, listen, I have this idea about a show. please do communicate with us. We'd love to hear from you and love how you make the show as well. So interact with us via our various social pages, and our email and WhatsApp is instant, so we can get those messages. And we love how you tell us how you feel about the show. So online we have Yasmina, our Islamic therapist, guiding us through balancing this idea of disciplining with compassion. And it's not just an idea, it's an actual practice that we need to do. And we learn parenting through our parents, through what we saw and through our parents. So it's a different day and age that we are parenting. So let's uplift our parenting styles a little bit. Yasmina, I want to talk about consistency. As both parents need to be on the same page, and we often talk about, and I'm sure many husbands and wives have disagreements with regards to this, when they say the one thing to the child and the child goes and reverses the role, like, let me go and see what my father is going to say. I know who's going to be lenient and who am I going to get away with. So let's talk about consistency in parenting, as well as the values that we teach them through discipline in a compassionate manner.
So there's quite a bit taken into consideration here. So first would be, as a parent, it would be what is your intention when you're disciplining your child? So with regards to consistency, does your discipline change with different contexts? And you see this so often, how you see that maybe with this family, you discipline in a certain way because maybe Islam or so, their teachings are quite a bit strictly. So they would wear the scarf, they would make salah on time, they would do various dhikrs and things like that. So here, when your child is with this family, when you have these family gatherings, you tell your child, put your hair in, put your scarf on, wear something, wear a longer top, whatever it is. But then you go to different family functions, and this is a different set of families, different rules, more lenient. But now it's a bit maybe more modern or so. Now I say to your child, oh, don't wear a scarf, you look older if you wear a scarf, or don't do this, or just wait before you make salah, or don't say salah so loud in this group, things like that.
Yes.
So you have to look at your intention as a parent, because if you're not consistent, regardless of your context, then that is definitely, your child will pick that up, and they would then perceive you as, okay, you are not an individual, you are not a parent that is looking out for me. You are rather looking at how people perceive me. And you think that a teenager they want to pick up these things. But trust me, as somebody that currently seeing quite a bit of teenagers, they pick up. They know, okay, when my parents says A, B, and C to me, it's not because they're wanting to protect me from punishment, etc. No, they're saying that in this context because that aunt will disapprove if I look a certain way. So they're not going to perceive it as you caring about him, but they're going to say, okay, it's how you look in this context. So that is why you're treating me a certain way. And can you see that maybe when they are younger, that can work. But when they reach the age of when they become a teenager, that is when you go. So you have normal rebellion as a teenager. But if you show these tendencies towards your child, and they pick up if you are sincere towards them, or if it is for external approval, because then there you can get quite a bit of there can be so much conflict between the parent and the child, just by simple consistency and discipline. So that's number one to take into consideration. And then number two is a different context, and this is especially maybe with our younger groups of kids. So if your child is at a preschool, or your parents are taking care of the child during the day while you at work and things like that, then is the discipline consistent with that child? So in other words, in your house there's certain rules, but majority of the day from 7:30 or 7:00 till 5:00 when you come and fetch your child from your parents' home, their grandparents' home, there's very different idea of discipline. And it's difficult because you are putting remember your parents did their job in discipline in raising you. And my parents made this also very clear to me before my child was born. They said that you can't expect that your parents must discipline your child, because they say there's a completely different now between you and your child and you and your grandchild. So to expect your parents to discipline your children the same way you're going to discipline your children, it's very difficult. And I would think it's also quite unfair.
You know what, Yasmina, I also got that lecture. Much later on, I also got that lecture. I am not this child's parent, you are. I did my job with you. So let me do my job. I want to be a grandparent. No, I got that lecture.
And it's it's only fair.
It's
they
deserve
comment,
that.
Yes. And we see this so often now. If you look at who brings a child to the clinic, if you look at who brings a child to the different services or so that they need, grandparents take these roles these days. And it's difficult because they are older and now they must fight maybe with a teenager, or they must run after a toddler. And it's not fair. So I would say that definitely your context, the different context that the children find themselves in, there needs to be consistency. So there's certain disciplining and teachers also. So we're talking about grandparents, but teachers also. They are there. Their job is to teach and educate your child. It's not to discipline and raise your child for you, to make things easier for you in their home. So all these things you need to take into consideration for there to be consistency throughout the child's day. This is where things like routine comes in. This is where things like consequences for negative actions that has to take place, and positive reinforcement should also take place when there are good actions. So you must be consistent with that as well. Because now, today, a child says something disrespectful and you have the energy to discipline that child. But tomorrow, or 2-3 times down the line, they did it again, you don't have the energy to discipline them. So what do you think is going to be the overriding result that child's going to take? Are they going to take that, but they made one time my mom scolded me out and I did this, or they're going to take it 3 or 4 times I did and there was no consequences. And they will continue with the negative behavior. So all of this you have to take into consideration.
I know we're specifically talking about, balancing the act of, when we're disciplining with compassion. There are certain acts within our children that, we find hard to deal with, like maybe lying or taking things, or we would say it's stealing. But from a young age, you wouldn't maybe accuse a child of stealing because they're still learning through the values and what is right and wrong. Because I was, and this just comes to mind now. I dealt with my eldest daughter at one stage. We came home and we saw she had these tiny little highlighters, or it was an eraser, and she loved carrying a little bag. I think she was like 8 years old, or 7, 8 years old. And when we came home and we asked her, and I saw it, and I said, "Where did you get this?" And she said, "No, I got it from the shop." I said, how did you get it from the shop? She said, "No, it was on the shelf and I took it and I put it in my bag." And I was so shocked because, we would categorize it as stealing. But of course, for her, like you said earlier on, the child doesn't really understand why you're saying you, because, they don't know the value maybe at that time. So I want to look at maybe specific discipline areas when it comes to lying, and when it comes to, a child acting, aggressively or in a hyperactive manner, and that child's maybe been diagnosed with ADHD, but, one of the old people would say, or that someone that doesn't understand, this child's onbeskof, they're rude, they have no adapt, and then also looking at, things like that, stealing and taking things from a young age. How do you create those values from a very early age? Not preventing situations like that, because sometimes when you want to teach them about it, you only teach them when it actually happens. Is that correct? The correct way of dealing with it, or is it something that you can instill a little bit earlier on with compassion?
Yes, so maybe it's sometimes difficult if the scenario hasn't occurred yet for you to teach your child about that, because they have to be exposed to the action. So maybe it is that they saw somebody else doing that, and maybe they saw the older brother or sister or cousin or so doing something, and then that child was being disciplined. Or perhaps that child was not being disciplined, and now you realize, your child saw that behavior. So maybe you saw, maybe your child saw somebody, like you said, maybe stealing something. And then the parents found out, and this whole thing is I'm playing now in front of your child. And the parents say, "Did you take this? Where did you take this from?" And they say, "Oh, no." The child says, "Oh, no, I took it from the shop and I put it in my bag," just like you said. And now the parents, they look and they laugh about it and they walk away.
Yeah.
So now you see, but for you, that wasn't perhaps the correct way to handle that situation, because the child still doesn't know whether it's a good thing or bad thing. Actually, I could actually perceive it as, it made my parents happy when I did it, I'll do it again. So now you see, your child sees this. So in that way, yes, before your child does the action, you can educate them to say, can you see so-and-so did this? What do you think of that behavior?
Okay.
And we don't always do this. Sometimes we think our children are level 0 when it comes to intelligence, and we tell them what to think. No, you just ask your child, what do you think about that?
Okay.
Because sometimes they pick up from you or those around them that's a bad behavior. Because remember, the strongest influence on your child is learned behavior. Is you seeing what you do, and then they will copy that action. So if your child sees it, I ask them, what do you think about that situation? And if they're correct, then reward them and say, well done. That is good, and add on if you need to add on. Okay. If they say, oh, there's nothing wrong with it, then correct that. But always explain why. And I get so frustrated when parents say, when the child does something wrong, and then you correct their child, you say, don't do that. The child actually innocently wants to know, but why not? Yes. But why? Then you say, it's because I said so, because mommy said so. But that's not a good enough reason. Because in other words, if mommy says so, it's fine. But if daddy says so, I don't have to listen, because you see, it's a lot of things to take into consideration depending on the age of the child. So if they ask why, or they don't understand, or they look baffled when you say something, explain to them it's incorrect to take somebody else's things. You will need to pay for certain things. Speak about the repercussions of those actions. Speak about how to defend other people if that happens. Speak about try and turn the scenario around, because children from a very young age, till you're a teenager, actually, you're very self-centered. And you can't help that, but you perceive everything in accordance with yourself. So if a scenario unfolds in front of you, you would think to yourself, how did I play a part in that? Yes. So it's very difficult for them to see themselves outside of the situation, especially your teenagers and younger. Everything is and this is, we would say it's narcissism if you're older. So these are some of the signs of narcissism as an adult. But in a child, you have these tendencies, and it's acceptable. It's okay. So you would have to explain to the child, if you were in that position and somebody did that to you, how do you feel? So this is where the child rearing comes in. You have to do that and spell these things out to your child. I know it's tiring. Now you have 3, 4, 5, 6 children, and you have to do this for all your children, depending on the different ages. But that is your manner, that is your duty. If you don't do it, who's going to do it? Are they going to learn from TV or series and things like that? Yeah. So yeah, it's a big job as parents.
In fact, I remember my last guest said, if we don't step forward and teach the child, the rest of the world is going to teach them differently. So it's actually up to us to take up that parent role that we are supposed to do, and the amana that we have been given to teach them correctly. So that's what we're all talking about. Join us in our next segment as we continue our conversation. I feel like I just want to go on and on talking about discipline, balancing, the discipline with compassion with our social worker, Yasmina. Stay with us, more just after the short break. Balancing discipline with compassion, adab, and raising our children in the way. And when we say adab, it means compassion, it means discipline. It doesn't just mean we are, teaching our children to be good in this beautiful manner that we say it in Islam, adab. Sometimes when the child is disrespectful, and we will say, you don't have any adab. But we do it in a way that is compassionate as well. So in fact, when we discipline our children in Islam, it is a manner of doing it with compassion. We're chatting with social worker Yasmina from the Western Cape out in Cape Town, the beautiful mother city. And I know that I've said this to our previous guests, and how lucky we are as well now to have 2 guests after each other who are both hamil. So I don't know if I'm allowed to break the news, but congratulations, Mubarak to you as well, Yasmina, for this beautiful journey that you're undertaking. I know it's number 2, but we are so blessed to actually have you in the state that you are in, carrying another child. So we're not just interviewing one person, we're interviewing two. And we in that context, alhamdulillah, in spirit. So we are so pleased that, you have come to us in that state, and that Allah grant you, of course, all the barakah and the khair and for this journey with patience, inshallah. So before I forget, that just came to mind. Let's talk about coping with parental guilt. Now, sometimes parents feel guilty about being too strict or not being strict enough. How can they navigate these feelings and possibly find a balanced approach that allows with both discipline and compassion, and not also compromising on our Islamic principles?
Yes. So two things came to mind when you asked this question, because they're so starkly different, but actually it stems from the same issue, in that this guilt aspect of the parent. So there's one scenario when don't say child, actually teenager, said that so oftentimes I get sent kids or teenagers, etc., just for an assessment, because sometimes the parents don't know. Maybe there was a certain traumatic experience or loss or whatever it is in the family. They're just wanting to check in that their child's coping and things like that. So I would do like an assessment or so with the child. Then, with a teenager. So there was one specific scenario when there was an issue with the child that started experimenting with things like smoking and those kinds of things. Also very common, I think, that's happening quite a bit now in schools as well, where they're doing this electronic cigarettes and things like that. So the parent came, and this was seen as, what my child is doing, this is so bad, etc. But speaking alone to the child actually mentions, but why are they being so hard on me when the parent actually did abuse substances, when actually quite recently only stopped using substances, so drugs, etc.
Yeah.
So this child sees that, but who are you to tell me I cannot do these things if you did worse than me? So can you see with this child measured it as you, and there was so much things that I picked up that was a bit difficult about the situation, but that child picked up, you are doing things that are considered worse. So she now measured, and she says, okay, you did A, B, and C, so I don't have to go that far, because that's how far you went, and that's bad. I can go this far, and you can't say anything, because at least I didn't go as far as you did. So this is a bit difficult, because firstly, why is it that a child, so perhaps, yes, in this case, the child was exposed to maybe the father using substances. But there are other cases where the parents find the need to actually tell the child, when I was younger, I did A, B, and C, and so I used to go clubbing, I used to do drugs, I used to do alcohol, I used to have intimacy outside of marriage, things like that. And out of their guilt, like you mentioned now, the guilt that they're sitting with, they find it necessary to tell their children this. So just like we spoke about tazkiyah before this, and this is where the Islamic aspect comes quite a bit into counseling as well, it's because of your guilt and what you are sitting with, and your things that you have not dealt with, and your issues that you have not dealt with, that you are now putting this on your child, that you find the need to explain to your child, or maybe get that affirmation from your child to say, these are the things that I did, this is why I don't want you to do these things. And sometimes we think that's a good way to educate our children, to say, I've done it, so you don't do it. But remember what I said, it's difficult to explain a situation to a child if they have not seen it firsthand. So now you explain to the child this hypothetical example, and you explain and telling them, don't do it because this is what happened to me. But they might see it as, oh, but I have to experience it myself to make that decision. Or somehow in their surroundings, they need to now experience that to be able to decide, well, that's the wrong path to take. And look at what we are taught. We have tawbah. And the aspect of tawbah is that you don't go back to it. You don't go back to the action again. But it's also that you should not divulge. And this is what I learned in that Diri's book, an Akida book, but he spoke quite a bit about this, and I actually loved it. He spoke about, you do not divulge your sins. So if you did things in the past and you feel guilty about it, and you're sitting with unresolved issues, you deal with that. But to take it to your child, or to mention these things to your child, these sinful things to yourself. Now you are still back with, maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave you for these things, but you bringing it out to the forefront, you're scratching that scar open again. And just to take back to what Tadir actually alluded to, so this is a scholar in Aqidah, and he actually alluded to the fact that you do not divulge your sins. Because if you do not divulge your sins and the sins of others, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you on the day of Qiyamah and not divulge your sins. There are even going to be a group of individuals. Remember, our book of deeds are going to be read out in public. But there are going to be certain individuals that they are going to be protected, that to make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us to be of these individuals as well. And they do not get that embarrassment or that their time where those sins are being read out in public. And those individuals are when they are still by secret, they didn't divulge their sins, and they didn't divulge the sins of others. So we need to keep that in mind, because it's not our duty to have to get that reassurance from our children. And so I think when it comes to guilt, you need to that guilt of disciplining your child, try and see where is it stemming from. Is it your issues that you have? Because it's not fear on the child that they are now being affected negatively by this. So the guilt aspect, I think definitely it comes from yourself, and you need to take a look at where that's stemming from before actually divulging certain things to your children.
I think, Yasmina, we have to have a part 2, because I wanted to now move on to individual disciplining when it comes to children and their various temperaments, because children have unique personalities and they have unique, temperaments. So do you paint everybody with the same brush? Positive reinforcement was another thing I wanted to touch on, and then the support that we can, latch on when it comes to our Islamic community. But we have to wrap up, unfortunately. And I know that in this year, inshallah, if you're still available, you can make some time for a follow-up on disciplining with compassion. And inshallah, we look forward to spending some more time with Yasmina in topics like this. But just in conclusion, Yasmina, quickly in one minute or so, when parents are finding themselves struggling to strike this balance, what support system or resources are possibly available within the Islamic community and through professionals like yourself?
So yes, like you said, there's professionals like myself that can help an individual from the parenting aspect, but then also to take part in different classes. So maybe at your local massages, etc., and look at the different programs that they have. And sometimes even parenting groups are very important. Maybe parenting styles also you admire. Maybe you can also surround yourselves with those individuals that are very strongly Islamically oriented. But with regards to resources, and so online as well, I always mention Seekers Guidance, because they have so many good free resources, books, lectures, everything. And then there's quite a bit on tarbiyah as well. So I'm begging you to just go and look over there and see what it is that Seekers Guidance has to offer. It's free. It's at your own time. It's very good, top quality, I think, education.
Yasmina, Samaai, thank you so much for your time. We hope to see you soon again, inshallah, as we conclude this insightful episode of Life Matters. A heartfelt thanks to Yasmina Samaai Saleh. Remember to interact with her as well via her Islamic Therapist social pages. And you can message us with any questions, comments, and queries, and we hopefully take it to the next show. So we appreciate your time once again, Yasmina. All the best for your journey until we speak again. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair to Yasmina Samaai for shedding light on this art of balancing discipline and compassion. We definitely have to have a part 2. May the wisdom shared today inspire parents and grandparents on their journey of nurturing resilient and compassionate individuals together. Remember, it is this delicate dance of firmness and love that we sculpt the characters of tomorrow and the future of tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in. Until the next time, may your homes be filled with harmony and understanding. From myself, Hilaal, wassalamu alaikum and goodbye.